Hi, my name is Julia and welcome to my YouTube channel. In elementary school, so I was about, I guess, like 8 or 9 years old, and all my classmates that were girls had crushes on boys. And I just remember the way that they were describing, like, oh, like, I want to like talk more to so-and-so and I want to spend more time with so-and-so, or like, I find him really good looking. I think deep down I knew that I felt like I didn't see guys the way that my like classmates who were girls did. Like, I just, like, I was like, in my head, I was just kind of like, what do you mean he's like cute? I just didn't really understand that. I would even write like in my diary, like, oh, like I have a crush on so-and-so, just because I thought like that's what liking someone was. Like, you just like wrote about it, and I think I was like trying to convince myself that I was straight. I had a dream that I kissed a girl when I was 10, and that changed everything. And I woke up feeling like, oh my goodness, I am different. And I was like, I'm gonna take this to my grave. I'm never gonna tell anyone about this. I'm different. And I think around that time too, like, my family had, I guess, like two like friends of friends who were lesbian couples, but there was like one like butch woman, and then there's like one femme woman, and they were like, they were like middle-aged, and so I didn't really like see myself as a queer woman, because I was like, I feel like I don't really like look like these people. I feel like I don't really dress like them. Like, I feel like these women and I are just like so different. And I think when you're a kid, right, like people who are like adults seem so much older, and so it's kind of like, oh, like I was like, oh, like I don't really think I'm like them, so I'm like, I must be straight. And at the time too, like, I remember people around me were like, oh yeah, like lesbians are like tomboys, and like, you know, like if you're a girl who's into girls, then like, yeah, you're like a tomboy, you wear pants all the time. And I like refused to wear pants. Like, I pretty much only wore dresses as a kid. And I was like, very feminine, very like girly. So I did not resonate with that. And then there was not a lot of, I feel like, femme representation in media. I remember seeing Ellen, and I remember seeing like Jane Lynch in Glee, which is around the time that I had that dream about the girl that I knew. And I remember being like, I remember in Glee when like Jane Lynch, they have like Sue Sylvester start, like, I think she like starts like dating a guy, and I remember sitting there being like, that is a gay woman. Like, there is no way. I did not believe the like Sue Sylvester is into men storyline in Glee. Yeah, so but I was like, I feel like I'm not like masculine, and I'm not butch, and like, so I didn't see myself as like looking like Ellen or like wanting to dress like Ellen. And like, same with like Sue Sylvester, I was like, she only wears track pants, like that's definitely not me. And I was also thinking like, yeah, like I'm not a tomboy. So I think in my head, after I had that dream, I was like, okay, so I might be different, and I was very scared of that. And I woke up, yeah, feeling so alone and being like, I can't tell anyone about this, especially since it was a dream where like I kissed a girl that I knew. And I was like, everyone's gonna think I'm creepy, and like, I'm 10 years old, right? I'm like, what if people think I'm creepy? Like, what does this mean? Like, people, like, I'm not, I felt deep down that I was different, but I feel like at that age, I just really wanted to fit in. And I was like, if someone knows about this, like, I'll never be able to fit in. And so I was like, I'm not going to talk about this. And so that was, yeah, when I was 10 and still like living in Ottawa, obviously like with my family, everything. And then when I entered middle school, I was friends with this girl. I'm going to change everyone's names just to keep it kind of anonymous as possible. And so we're going to call her Kristen. So I met Kristen when I was 12 in the 7th grade. She transferred to my school and she had this like magnetic personality. She was so energetic. She was like the class clown. Like everyone just like wanted to be around her and wanted to be in her orbit. And she was really good at sports and I just like, everyone loved her and I did as well. Well, everyone just thought she was like the coolest person. Well, I think everyone thought that she was cool, and I thought she was like the coolest person in the world, the funniest person I'd ever met, the coolest person I'd ever met. Like, I just thought, wow, like this girl is like amazing. I just want to make sure the camera's recording. Okay, good, it is. Yeah, I thought Kristen was just like, just everything. Yeah, Kristen soon became my world. And I thought that everyone felt that way about their friends. I'd always wanted a best friend. And now, like, when I look back, like, my version of best friend is, like, how I would talk about, like, wanting a girlfriend now and like how it feels to have a girlfriend now. Like it was very much like I was like in middle school wanting a girlfriend, but I didn't know that I was wanting a girlfriend. I just thought that's how everyone felt about their best friends. So I meet Kristen. I think she's the coolest person ever. I really want to be her friend. We become friends. But Kristen is just, I don't really, like, I was very clingy back then, I will admit that. I've got an anxious attachment style, and I think those years were, like, when it was the most, like, prominent, and so I was very clingy, like, I definitely, like, followed Kristen around a lot, but Kristen was nice to me at first. Then, we, like, started having sleepovers. I, like, really wanted Kristen to like officially be my best friend. Again, yeah, such a huge sign that I was into girls. But then Kristen started being really mean to me, and I was bullied throughout the 8th grade. I won't get into that too much just because I feel like bullying is like can be like very triggering, because I know like a lot of queer people experience it, and so I won't get into the details, but yeah, Kristen bullied me for, I'd say like a couple of months, and it got very bad. I had to tell the school, just to get Kristen and her friends to stop, and then I was kind of like, okay, you know, I obviously like don't want to be friends with this person anymore. And keep in mind, like, before the bullying started, and actually throughout the bullying too, like, Kristen and I were having sleepovers every single weekend, and it was one of those things where, like, she wouldn't want to be seen, like, going over to my house, so she'd have me, like, meet her, like, not at the, like, pickup entrance of the school, but, like, around the back of the school, and, like, she didn't want to be seen with me at school, she didn't want to be talking with me at school. But then, like, at the end of the day, she'd be like, oh, like, I'm going back to your place tonight, right? Like, we're having a sleepover tonight, right? So it was just a very weird situation, very, like, I want to say, like, a toxic situation. So that persisted for a couple of months where Kristen was bullying me during the day, and then we were having sleepovers at night, and then we stopped being friends, and then a few months later, summer 2013, Kristen asks to be my friend again, and we had started talking more. I said yes. I still like really liked her and really wanted to be her best friend. And yeah, I still, in hindsight, had like a huge crush on her. And we still we start having sleepovers every weekend again. She's like my absolute world. I love her so much. And then February 2014, February 2015, I tell my mom that I just like tell my mom that I like love her. And my mom goes, "No, Julia, like you can only love your family and like your future husband, basically." And like I remember thinking, I was like, "No, mom, you're wrong. Like you can love your friends. Like you can really, really love your friends." And I was like, "I really love Kristen." Like, and my mom just said, like, "Julia, like don't tell people that. Like people will think you're gay." And at that time, like being gay was not cool, and there was a lot of like homophobia. There still is in a lot of parts of the world, but yeah, back then in Canada, at least in Ottawa, and especially at my high school, there was a lot of homophobia, and you didn't want to be gay, and like it was like gay people are weird, or like it was just, yeah, like it was just not like, it was like, oh, you don't want to be gay, not that it's choice, but it was just like, yeah, like you wouldn't want anyone to think you were gay, like it would not be good. And I want to say too that like the bullying when that happened in middle school it was always like Julia's in love with Kristen. Like those were the rumors that were being spread around. And so that was really scary because it was like, oh my goodness, like I would remember that I had this dream, and then I would be like, oh my goodness, oh, like I don't want to be gay. Like it was just kind of like, I was very, like, I didn't know a lot about, I hadn't really figured out my own sexual orientation. And then it was kind of like, all these rumors were being spread around. It's like, oh my god, I really don't want to be gay, and like, I don't want people to think that I'm gay because then they think that I'm weird or creepy or like, and it was just kind of like, being gay back then, it was like a derogatory thing. Like it was just, yeah, like it was an insult, which is really horrible. And the movie Pitch Perfect had like come out, and there was a whole thing about lesbianist. So like if you were openly gay at my school, I think it was still not a fun time, but if like everyone was kind of like, it was more like you were seen as creepy if you were gay but you weren't like out. So they'd be like, lesbianist Julia, like, are you in love with Kristen? And I was just kind of like, oh my god, like it was just really, I couldn't say no, but like didn't want to say yes, and like I hadn't figured things out yet. I just thought everyone loved their best friend that way. So it was a very confusing time, but yeah, anyway, February 24, 2015, I tell my mom that I like love Kristen, and my mom at this point like still thinks that I'm like straight. And then I just, like, Kristen and I are having sleepovers every weekend. I love Kristen very deeply. And then summer 2015, Kristen, like in this very elaborate way, asks me to be her best friend. And I'm over the moon. Like, I was like, I feel like we've been best friends for like a year and a half at this point. No, 2 years at this point. Because that's when we became friends again after Kristen had bullied me. Like, was summer 2013, and now it's summer 2015, and we're officially best friends. And it was like, it was such an exciting time. Like, the highs were high, but the lows were low. Like, Kristen had like an avoidant attachment style, and I had like an anxious attachment style. And Kristen was going through a lot in like family situation, and so when Kristen was like upset, Kristen would lash out at me or give me the silent treatment, or just play with my emotions in some other way, and like she would tell me all kinds of like really horrible things, but I thought that's what was part of like a healthy friendship, which is not true. And I just like loved her so much, and I thought I'd never feel the way that I did about her about anyone else, and I thought she was like the most amazing person I'd ever met, and that I would never meet anyone that would make me feel that way, or that I'd have as much fun hanging out with, or that I would love that much. And keep in mind, I still think of this as like a friendship. And then also summer 2015, I think this is before Kristen asks me to be officially her best friend, I tell Kristen about the dream that I had when I was 10 years old. And that was really scary because keep in mind, like, there has been rumors in the past about me being in love with Kristen, and I tell Kristen that I have never told anyone this, but I had this dream when I was 10 years old where I kissed a girl, and I worry that I might be bisexual, and that, like, that really scared me, and it was really hard to say. And Kristen sat there and said nothing. And I felt so, like, and no one should ever feel this way about their sexuality, but I felt like very gross and like disgusting, and like she just like looked at me and said nothing. And that was the worst. I'd say that's like one of the worst reactions you can have, because it was like she was just sitting there judging me, and it made me feel like, oh my god, I am gross, I am disgusting, like this is a problem, like I am different and it's a bad thing, and like something's wrong with me, which not true. Yeah, so that was very hard, and then we officially became best friends. Then I left to go on a trip. I came back from the trip, and Kristen, in a very brutal way, ended our best friendship. She read out a list of things that she didn't like about me, and I think like there's been moments in my life where like I've been like very hurt or very upset, but I think there's nothing as horrible than when you're like 16 years old and the person that you love, like, I don't think I've experienced anything as horrible as like when I was 16 years old and the person that I was in love with and my favorite person in the entire world read a list of things she didn't like about me. And like some of them were like small, like it was just like you like breathe too deeply, or like that's not one of them, but like it was just like some of them were like really like small things like that, and I think I blocked a lot of it out of my memory, but I just remember like sobbing and she just like, and she sat there and read like, I think it was Mindy Kaling's new book, as I just like cried and cried and cried, and I was so embarrassed that I was crying, but I was just so upset, like I couldn't not cry. And I woke up the next day, and keep in mind, I was sleeping over at her house this time, and I woke up the next day and I just felt this like, I felt numb, like I felt this numbness, and I felt like I had like a void in my heart. I was absolutely devastated. I cried all night. I cried the next morning, and I was crushed. And she ended our best friendship, but she was like, oh, but like we can still be like friends or whatever. And I feel like, truthfully, like I don't think I was ever able like to, I felt numb for months. Like I think like I was never able to feel the same way I did about her after that. Like that just, like she said a lot of horrible things to me throughout our friendship, but like, and did a lot of horrible things throughout our friendship, but that crushed me. Yeah, it was awful. And I remember having dinner with my mom one point and just being like, months after the fact, and like, come on, I wasn't really, like I was so embarrassed, and like I felt so much shame that like I didn't talk to my family about this. But like my mom knew that Kristen and I like weren't friends anymore, or like that our friendship was like, it had changed. And I remember months later, I remember just telling my mom, like, I feel like I have this hole in my heart. And I was like, I've been feeling empty for months, and like, will I always feel this empty? And like, will I always feel like I have this like void and this hole in my heart? And like, it was horrible. And I had talked about it with no one. Like, no one knew what happened. This is like so Kristen ends our friendship September, I think end of August, September 2015. And I don't tell anyone what happened till March of 2017. Like, that's how long I felt like there was no one I could really talk to about it, because I felt like I had done something wrong, like I wasn't, I had like, I felt like I had, like, I felt that no one had ever ever love me, and that I also felt like, yeah, like I felt so embarrassed that I felt like I had caused Kristen to hurt me and act those ways to me, when like really, like that's just like not how like toxic relationships and toxic dynamics work. People who treat people this poorly, it has nothing to do with you. Like, it has everything to do with them, and it's such a cruel, manipulative, abusive thing to do. My self-confidence was down the drain, my self-worth was down the drain, my self-esteem was down the drain. Like, I just did not think highly of myself whatsoever. Then in the 12th grade, we have this like health class, and we're talking about like sexual orientations, and the way that it's taught is that there's like different categories. So there's like, you can be bisexual, or you can be a lesbian, or you can be pansexual, and it's just like, or you can be asexual, and it's just kind of like, it was taught as like, these are the boxes that you fit into. And like, keep in mind, like what I grew up with and everything, like those boxes, it's kind of like, when you think of like a box, it's like filled with stereotypes, right? And so like, I was just kind of like, oh, like I definitely, like, it was just weird because it was like, oh, I don't feel like I, like, everything I know about these boxes doesn't resonate with me. Like, to be a lesbian, you have to be like a tomboy or masculine or butch, or like it just, that wasn't me. So again, I was thinking like, yeah, there's no way I can be into girls. Like, I don't fit these stereotypes, and so that means I don't fit into these boxes. Then two friends came over to my house after school that day, and we were talking about that class, and one of my friends says like, she says like, oh, like I don't think I'll ever kiss a girl. Like, I have no desire to kiss a girl. Like, I know I'm straight. And my other friend's like, yeah, like me too. Like, I've never, like, I don't think I'll ever kiss a girl. I have no desire to ever kiss a girl. Like, and keep in mind, we hadn't kissed like guys at that point either. So like, they were like, yeah, like I just have like no desire to kiss a girl. Like, I don't think I ever will. And I remember just sitting there, and I was like, so I was like 16, 17 at this, I think I was 16 or 17. I'm in the 12th grade, so I was probably like turning 17 shortly after. No, I was 17. Anyway, I was 17, and I remember just thinking like, I hadn't kissed a guy, I hadn't kissed a girl, but I was like, how can you eliminate women? Like, there was nothing in me that was like, why can't I kiss a girl? Like I was like, what? Like how can, I remember just being like, how can you like eliminate women? Like, there's nothing in me that's like, yeah, like, no. So I remember being like, yeah, I'll never kiss a girl either. But that's when I knew, I was like, oh no, like, this is something that, like, I was like, oh, like, I am different, and I was like, this is something that I'm going to put off, and I'm going to explore when I go to university.